Hi, welcome to our 2021 interview series for the Caucus for Women in Statistics of our past presidents in celebration of our 50th anniversary. This interview features Nicole Lazar, our 2019 president, interviewed by myself, Jessica Kohlschmidt, the executive director for the Caucus of Women in Statistics.
Okay.
So, when you were caucus president, what was the most pressing issue for the Caucus for Women in Statistics?
Well, of course, last year was a year of Me Too, and so I think that was something that was on a lot of people's minds, the place of women in the profession and in society more generally. So I think, that was a kind of a big thing in the background. How that kind of came out, I guess, in practice was we did a lot of work with Eric Vance's Lisa 2020 project, which aims to advance particularly women statisticians in the developing countries. So I think that's something that we put a lot of effort into. You were there along with me, so you know how much thought and time we devoted to that.
Hot topic for last year and this year.
And this year, yes.
When you were president, what is your favorite memory?
My favorite memory. So as president, I got to host the first timers reception at JSM, which was a lot of fun. Like I thought it was, I didn't know what to really expect because the first time I went to JSM, there was no first timers reception. But it was really great to, we had some nice speakers that I thought were really inspirational, and the new attendees just all seemed so excited about being at JSM for the first time. So I thought it was really great to meet all of those people and get their energy.
Can you just, this says in 2 words, but you can use more. Describe how you feel about the Caucus for Women in Statistics.
That way, like I've just really enjoyed being a part of the caucus, and it's opened me up to other experiences and opportunities I don't think that I would have had, because it's much more of an international facing organization now. I mean, I think we've met, certainly, I guess, with starting with Sheely, maybe, I don't know who started, but it's really that emphasis on, women all around the world, I think is just really cool. And so that's something that, I didn't really expect. And so I've really enjoyed that aspect, and just getting to meet other cool people, right? I don't, cool women, cool men, doesn't matter. Just interesting people doing interesting things, I think has been something that I've really enjoyed through my time as caucus president, and now being a member of the caucus. So
I think it's interesting because I feel like the caucus is what you make it. So when people are like, why should I join? And I'm like, it depends on what you're willing to put into it, right? Like, if you just get emails, like, it may not be as beneficial to you, but if you get involved and you meet people, and you meet people you wouldn't have met.
Association, right? It's like any professional association. It's what you get into it. What you get out of it is what you put into it. And so I'm looking forward. I saw there's a lecture about Florence Nightingale in a couple of weeks, and so I signed up for that.
Did you? We have 118 people signed up for that.
I'm one of those people.
Isn't that incredible? I'm so excited.
Yeah.
I was like, I found the co-sponsors. I coordinated, put the website together. We have 118 people, and I'm like, oh my God, this is so amazing.
Great. Yeah. And Dong Yun had me at her event, at her Florence Nightingale event. I was one of her panelists.
Oh, cool.
Yeah.
She sent the link, so I want to watch it.
They had a really good turnout. And not only from the DC area, like they said that they had people signed on from Korea, even, because it was joint with the Korean Women in Science. So they had
Do you know how many people?
I feel I want to say around 100. I'm not sure, but it was a pretty large number. Yeah,
that's good.
Yeah, and see, like that's another example of just that whole international thing. And then they had the video competition for the students, and all the kids. They showed all the videos, like the ones that came in third place, second place, and first place. They showed them all, and they were really creative, and it was just like, this, seeing what these kids are doing was really kind of fun as well.
It's cool. I like this opportunity for it to not be geographically bound.
Yeah. Well, that's, the one silver lining of
COVID.
all this nonsense.
That is very true. I just wonder, like we're doing a version a week from Saturday.
Yeah,
We have like 3 people from Nigeria and 2 people from Turkey and someone from Dubai. And like, that's not something you would normally have an opportunity to do.
Right. And
So
I've been able to go to, lectures that I wouldn't have been able to go to otherwise, because they would have involved travel, and who's going to travel to,
yes.
to hear one talk someplace. Right.
Yes. It's been neat.
Yeah.
All right. So there were some career path questions. Do you mind?
I don't mind.
How did you end up becoming a statistician?
That was what my talk was about at Dongyun's FN Day event.
Oh, we might go steal some of that then, because I have the link to the video.
I think it's all going to be posted. So, randomly, basically.
I think that's a lot of our stories, right?
Yeah. I don't want to go through all the gory details. That's in my talk at her FN Day. That's exactly what she asked me to talk about. So, but basically, I by the time I got to university, I thought I wanted to be a research psychologist. I didn't, and that had been after many other things that I thought I wanted to be growing up. And then, so I was majoring in psychology and math because I didn't really know about statistics or whatever. And then one of my friends said, oh, you should, basically she just said, oh, you should major in statistics instead. So I switched.
Nice.
Yeah. And then from there, but I still thought I wanted to be a psychologist. And it wasn't until after undergrad, I went into the Army because I was living in Israel, and I was working as a statistician in an Army psychology research unit. And then I decided, oh, I could still do psychology and I could do all these other things that I'm interested in if I study statistics. So I decided that's what I wanted to do. And I didn't really know how to go about doing that, like how to go to grad school in statistics. And it just so happened that at one point when I was thinking about all of this, a friend of my dad's who was a statistician living in the United States was coming to Israel and was giving some talks and agreed to meet with me. And that friend of my dad turned out to be Steve Feinberg from Carnegie Mellon University. Nice. And so he sat with me for like 2 hours and told me about all the different programs in the States and how to apply for graduate school and what it meant to be a statistician, and said, yeah, I'll accept you into the program at CMU right now. So even if you don't get in anyplace else, you'll have a place to go if you want to come to CMU, which I didn't end up doing. But so that's kind of how it all happened.
That's very neat. I do think it's interesting stories about how, like, I took a stat class because I was a math major.
Yeah.
And then I was like, oh, I like this actually.
Yeah, I think I'd seen a little bit of stat. Probably I must have seen in high school, but because I remember, things like means and medians and things like that, but not really knowing what statistics was beyond. And it wasn't really on my radar. But if I wanted to do research, it seemed like a more useful skill. And then once I took a couple of classes, it's like, oh yeah, it's still mathy, but it's also really, real world. So,
applicable.
Yeah.
Yes. What challenges do you think female statisticians face today?
No, I don't like questions like that because I feel like they're too negative. And it's interesting because again, at this FN Day a couple weeks ago, there was one of the participants was asking kind of a question like that, like what did she say? Oh, have we ever encountered barriers? So she asked me and the other two panelists, but they didn't see that question. So I got asked it about, barriers to being a woman in a male dominated field or something like that. And I've never really felt that way. Like I never really felt like there were any barriers, and I never really felt like I was discriminated against in any way. I'd kind of laugh about, oh, I was in a meeting and there was Dave, Nicole, and Dave, or I was on an email thread where it's like, 4 Davids and me, and my husband's named David too. And so, but that's more like funny stuff. And so it's hard for me to think about for me personally, and so I don't want this to get taken out of context or misconstrued, this is just my personal experience. It's hard for me to think about challenges that are sort of, I don't know, female specific, if you know what I mean. Not that people don't encounter those. And I know that women who feel like they've had barriers or have encountered barriers, I'm sure they really have, but that's just not been my experience. And so it's hard for me to think about what those might be, which maybe is not the best answer, but.
I think one of the things actually that I like about that is that you still find energy and interest in the caucus, even though you didn't, like, it's not because of discrimination, right?
Oh,
it's just
yeah.
because you're passionate about women in the field, not.
Mentoring, I think, is something that I care a lot about because of that early experience with Steve Feinberg, that, he didn't know who I was. I was just, the daughter of a friend, and he sat with me for so long and really encouraged me. And so since that was so important for me, I've tried to be like that. I mean, I'm not Steve, but to be that kind of person and that kind of mentor for other people as well.
You're supportive and encouraging.
I try to be, but
you're like, I'm on your team, I promise.
Yeah,
definitely. I definitely feel that way about you anyways.
Well, thanks. I try. That's been really important to me.
I like what you have to share. Do you have anything you would like to share regarding your career development?
I'm not quite sure what that question means, so I'll just interpret it as, maybe lessons, right, from the way my career has developed, which is just be open to new opportunities. Change is scary and it's hard, but hey, we moved in the middle of the global pandemic because a good opportunity came along, and it's not been easy, but I still think it's a good opportunity. I think it will be a good opportunity. It's really easy to just, and here, Jessica, this is for you. It's easy to kind of stay in your pattern and think, oh, this is okay, this is good enough, or whatever. But you sometimes just have to take that chance and take that leap and hope that it will work out. Because the one thing I've learned from this, I mean, I was at UGA for 16 years, which was a really long time. It's the longest I've been anywhere in my life. And it was definitely scary to think about moving. But now that I've done it, it's like, oh, yeah, this is right. I mean, it's doable, right? And it kind of opens you up to other opportunities as well.
Yeah, you're definitely an inspiration.
Ha!
You didn't even say, like, one day you're like, I'm moving next week. Like, moving where? Pennsylvania. I got a new job.
Oh, yeah. Right. I guess, right. Well, I had other plans for how I was going to let people know, but then COVID came and kind of blew all that up. And so it just was like, oh, everyone was so stressed out about the situation and having to switch their patterns of work and whatever. And the move just kind of fell into the background until it's like, really, I need to tell people now.
You're like, and now I'm moving. So just so
yes, I think when I told people in caucus, it was like, we were moving in like 2 or 3 days after. It wasn't even a week. It was like, oh yeah, we're moving on Friday.
No, you're like, well, you can have a meeting, but I won't be available. The movers are coming or something. Like, what?
Yeah.
Luckily for the caucus, so much of what we do already is not in person.
Right.
So for caucus, I mean, JSM, of course, was very different.
Yeah.
But for most of our caucus activities, doing all of this, being remote is not unusual. Like, this is definitely something we've been doing for, I started talking to Nancy in 2013 once a week.
Mm-hmm. And, Zoom meetings is something that we've been doing for a long time. And yeah.
People ask me stuff about Zoom and I'm like, I've been doing it for the caucus since 2016. Like, what?
Yeah.
2017. I don't know. We've been doing it for a long time. I'm like, Zoom is not new.
No, I'm just like, I should have bought stock in Zoom back in March.
Yeah, well, live and learn, right?
Exactly, live and learn.
Who would have known? This has been a crazy time.
Yeah.
I did want to ask, just because I don't know that we've added it, is there like a top one or two accomplishments that you're proud of from when you were president?
So one of the things I'm really proud of is that we became a partner of JSM, which gave the caucus, I think, more visibility. It gives us a spot on the program. Yeah, so I think that's probably something that I'm really proud of. It's a nice recognition of the work of all the women who came before.
I personally think that organizing our volunteers is pretty priceless for
that. When I knew you were going to ask me this, and those were the two things I was going to say. It's like the volunteers and the partner of JSM. And I hope that the volunteer thing, the organization of that and getting that kind of more structured continues. And I hope it's been helpful for caucus activities as well.